Terrell Copeland thought that he was set for an illustrious career within the United States Marine Corps. As a young soldier, he'd joined straight from high school. But sadly, this was a career that was due to be cut short because of a medical condition. In fact, it was a rare blood disorder that stemmed from muscular injury. But more about this later. Terrell settled into a job as a forklift driver in a warehouse in his hometown. But little did Terrell know about the events that would soon catapult him under the spotlight of one particular and distinct membership. And this was a membership of people who shared one very unique accomplishment. They had all, reportedly, been abducted by aliens. But before we get into today's story, I'd like to ask if you are indeed a fan of the weird, wonderful and sometimes sinister tales of humanity, to please hit that subscriptions button, and please also slap the notifications bell with a 3-fingered death punch so that you'll be notified as and when new content is available here on the flip side. Now, you can round out that trifecta of support, should you so wish to, by giving this or any one of the other stories in the archives with a like. Now, as is customary, I'd like to take a moment just to shout out to some of the channel subscribers as a way of saying thanks for going the extra mile and interacting with me via the comments section of recent uploads. So, a big thanks goes out to Matt Hoon, Windwolf Alpha, Peter Godwin and Safety Man 3. To each and all of you, a big thanks for taking that extra time to interact with the channel. But now, without further ado, let's get into today's story, which deals with the alien abduction of Terrell Copeland, here on the flip side. Terrell Copeland is no stranger to UFOs. He's often recounted his first sighting of an alien craft in 1997 when he was aged just 15. This was prior to him joining the United States Marine Corps, given that he'd had his heart set on a career in the military since childhood. But this, sadly, was all to come crashing down around him when, after just a few years served, he was found to have a rare blood condition associated with muscle injury. Given the condition was enough to end his military aspirations, Terrell left the service and eventually found work as a forklift driver in a warehouse facility in Suffolk, Virginia. Now, it was after a particularly long shift on October 24th of 2005 that Terrell would have his first of what he considered to be a connected string of unexplained encounters. The first of these encounters was when he witnessed what he described as a triangular-shaped flying object that was, at the time he encountered it, hovering almost motionless above a prominent shopping centre in the city centre. The first time, I saw a jet manoeuvring around a massive ball of light, and that was on E. Washington Street, close to the Dismal Swamp, he would say. I was facing downtown. The light was probably 1 or 2 miles away, and the jets were probably at around 15,000 feet altitude. Now, 3 nights after that initial sighting, he said he saw an additional incident which he swears was linked to the first. I was driving in front of the French Pride grocery centre and saw it up close, he said. The light was hovering over the centre. I pulled up to the parking lot and was not prepared for what I saw. There was an object inside the light, and it seemed that that light had been an illusion. And at first I thought it was just a stealth bomber, but I soon realised that a stealth bomber wasn't that big. He described the vehicle as moving very slowly, taking about 7 minutes to get from one side of the parking area to the other. Now, there was one thing that struck Terrell at the time of the sighting, and that was a thought that stuck within his recollection. Now, this is not usual. Something's wrong here. Maybe I'm way in over my head and I'm not supposed to be seeing or experiencing any of this stuff, he thought. Now, fast forward 2 years, it's mid-2007 and Terrell was enjoying an evening in his apartment when a noise compelled him to look out of his window, and what he saw would change the life that he had known up until then forever. Now, in his own words, he saw what he described as an orb of light, just a big ball of light. And then he noted that another craft, as he put it, was hovering not far from that orb, But this second one, unlike the first, which was just a ball of pulsating white light, this second one was changing colour incredibly fast. Now, this second craft was also predominantly stationary at an altitude that Copeland estimated to be at around 300 metres. Now, so prolonged was this encounter that Terrell actually had enough time to locate his cell phone and record the incident. Now, wanting to share this encounter with the world, Terrell decided to upload his footage to YouTube, and it has since been removed for whatever reason. And once he did, that's when things really started to get weird. It was just a few days after uploading the clip that Terrell recounted he heard a knock on his front door. And when he answered it, he was met by some mysterious looking guy who was standing just outside of his apartment. Now, the man identified himself as a military contractor, and after engaging in some initial small talk with Terrell about his encounter, he then began asking Copeland personal questions, things about his childhood, his parents' home life, and so on and so forth. Now, many of the questions made Terrell feel slightly uneasy, but it was the parting message from the man that really raised his eyebrows. On leaving, the man looked squarely at Terrell and, without batting an eyelid, told Copeland that the government was indeed in contact and in communication with extraterrestrial beings. Now, when you see these objects and then you do the research, and you soon find that there are so many people who have experienced the same thing as you. And with that, you have to say to yourself, well, maybe there's something to this, Terrell says. Now, it wasn't long after the departure of the mystery man that Terrell's life really began to start scaring him. He realised that he would often suffer from what he termed as lost time. Now, this is a phenomena that is often experienced by individuals who suggest as also having been in close contact with or even having been abducted by entities not of this planet. Now, if one such story stands out, it is the one experienced by a British policeman by the name of Alan Godfrey. The police officer's experience happened in 1980 when he recalled being abducted by aliens on numerous occasions. Now, in all of his experiences, Godfrey would attest to his losing time that resulted in empty voids in his memory where he had no recollection of his whereabouts or actions during that specific block of time. His encounter is often quoted as being one of the most credible accounts to reinforce the presence of aliens living among us. And it is often referred to as the Todmorden incident, and this is because it is so named after the small rural town in the country of Wales, UK, where these incidents happened. Now, to expand on his experiences, Copeland would state that on the few times when he didn't lose time, he would experience a form of paralysis from the head down. He would be able to speak, turn his head from side to side and look up and down, and by his own admission continue to have what he would determine to be rational thought. But that was all he could do. And beyond these few actions, he would lose all motor abilities and skills throughout the rest of his body. Now, this was the case on one particular encounter when, after hearing a scratching on his apartment door, Copeland was unable to rise from his sofa in order to answer what he assumed to be somebody knocking on his front door. Now, as a person who appreciated his personal security, Copeland did in fact own a legal firearm, which he kept hidden in his bedside cabinet. Now, on this night, he turned and cast an eye to that cabinet where his pistol was secluded, but he soon realised that even if he'd wanted to, that he wouldn't have been able to defend himself in that instant. Looking back to the hallway, he shouted and asked if there was anyone there, and there was complete silence, which was eventually broken by a flat, nondescript voice that stated, "You won't be needing that weapon because we are not here to harm you." Now, given that Terrell was fast becoming the star of the moment in the UFO and alien encounters circles, he soon started to be visited by a whole wealth of people, ranging from those with a simple curiosity in his experiences to others who said that they also shared similar encounters and had been themselves abducted. And then there were others who introduced themselves as working for shady government agencies. Now, Copeland's case garnered so much national and even international acclaim that it also became the focus of a national television show, a show by the name of History Series, UFO Hunters. And this in turn was hosted by a man named Bill Burns. The show logged Copeland's encounter as case number 58105, and in which the host Burns even went as far as suggesting that Copeland was indeed an alien hybrid. Now, it was a claim to which Copeland replied, "Man, that's heavy, but it doesn't sound that too far-fetched to me. After all that's happened in these last couple of years, it could even be true." Terrell would often describe the events that defined his experience when journalists, UFO enthusiasts or others came knocking. Now, one of these was during an abduction where he said he encountered what he took to be a female of whichever species it seemed was studying him. Now, of her appearance, he said that she had black eyes which were kind of oval in shape and an elongated skull. Now, at the end of this abduction, he found himself waving at the spaceship while standing on his balcony. Now, in his own words, Terrell often recounts another abduction that took place on the last Saturday of February 2008. I went to sleep on my couch and I woke up in a massive dining hall, and there were lots of tables. Everything was white. People were eating, and I described them as human because that's what they appeared to be. Copeland said that he was still in his bedclothes, and at first he thought that he was just having some kind of crazy dream. Now, he took it as a real experience when he realized later that the speakers that he kept on his window ledges had actually been moved. Now the speakers, were tucked away in a position that made no sense, he said. They were in a place that I would never have put them. The only conclusion to me is that they, the people, or the aliens, had brought me in and out through the window, and so as not to break the speakers, they had placed them way back in a place where I would never put them. Well, if you remember at the beginning of this story, I mentioned that Terrell had been discharged from his short career within the US Marines due to him being found to have a rare blood disorder. Well, it gets weirder. Terrell believes further evidence of his abductions is that very same and rare blood disorder that was confirmed when he visited a UFO hunter's doctor, and that doctor also informed him that this disorder within blood was shared by other people who had had similar experiences to Terrell. So this raises another question. Could it have been that Terrell may have indeed been abducted by aliens prior to his enlistment to serve in his nation's military? And if it was the case, it's an abduction to which Terrell has zero recollection. Now, throughout all of his experiences to date, Copeland says that his interactions with aliens have spiritually transformed him. I just want to be a better person because I feel if someone from above took notice of me, then maybe I'm doing something right. And if I'm doing something right, maybe I can do it better, he says. And so he set out on a path which he continues to journey to this day. Every culture from the Aztecs to the Egyptians talk about someone coming out of the sky, he says. He believes that many of the instances in the Bible, specifically in Ezekiel, Genesis and Exodus, that speak of beings descending from the sky are actually literal descriptions of aliens and their arrival on planet Earth. The beings, he said, planted humans here on Earth and have been monitoring us. The information is there in the Bible for us to see, he says. Now, unfortunately, we don't look at things with a logical mindset. As humans with modern civilization, we've been blessed and think that we're at the top of the proverbial food chain. But that isn't the case. And rounding out many of his public appearances, Copeland leaves his audience with what some interpret as a warning of things to come. When talking about the aliens he has encountered, he says they will reveal themselves and intervene in human affairs, he said. And we, as a species, need to get off our high horses. People will not take the planned intervention lightly, but they are going to show themselves. So get ready. You want change? Change is coming. So there you have it, folks. The abduction of Terrell Copeland. Now, if you have indeed enjoyed this installment from the flip side, please be sure to leave a like on the video. And if you haven't already, please do also subscribe to the channel and slap that notifications bell so that you'll be updated as and when new content is uploaded by yours truly. Now, as always, I'd also like to underline that I do welcome suggestions for stories that I can research for possible inclusion on this channel sometime in the future. Now, your suggestions can be left either in the comments down below or indeed by starting a discussion on the community tab of the channel. And on that note, Matt Hoon, I'm on the case. Don't worry about it, buddy. All good. All that remains for me is to wish you all the best. Please do stay safe, stay sane, if that is indeed possible, but above all, stay healthy. And hopefully, sometime soon, we'll meet up again here on the flip side.